welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. Today I'm talking about symbolism. I've covered a lot of different literary terms in the past, so definitely dig through the channel to see things like imagery and satire and allusions and things like that I've done before. Now, symbolism is one of those terms that gets thrown around by teachers, students, English departments, and is not defined as often as perhaps it should be. So I'm going to do my best to give a definition, which is going to necessarily be a little bit vague, and then make it a bit more concrete with examples of what it is and isn't. So a symbol at its heart is something that represents something else. It's different from a typical metaphor, however, in the sense that it is something that expands our understanding of the work, and it's very often something concrete that has a range of potential meanings within the story. So it's different from allegory, for example, because in an allegory, like Plato's allegory of the cave, which is in his Republic, we are given one-to-one meanings for the cave, for the sun, etc. Now you can expand that out and make it more symbolic of more things, but in the context of Plato's Republic, the allegory of the cave is more just allegorical. There is one way that the writer wants us to look at this. Now, very often an author will intend for there to be this symbol, and they intend for you to lean a certain direction when you're interpreting what that could represent. So let me give you a few examples of that. A very famous one is the shell in Lord of the Flies that is a symbol for order, society. It's something that is kind of the glue of whatever society exists before things start to fall apart in this story. So that's an example of a symbol. Now, if you're wondering, is this thing a symbol that I'm looking at? Chances are probably yes, but don't go nuts. If you're really wondering if this is something significant, ask yourself, is this object or thing that you think is symbolic at a central, important place in the story, or is it just a random thing that kind of appears once in a scene that maybe is not as pivotal as other scenes? A symbol should stand out. It should make you think, oh, I wonder if there's something to that. So another example would be Moby Dick in Moby Dick. We don't see a lot of the white whale, but obviously it moves the entire story along for all of the characters, and then there's a very dramatic ending that does include Moby Dick in it. So the whale itself is a symbol. Now, some popular interpretations are that Moby Dick is a symbol of the inexorable power of nature, and how that will always overwhelm mankind. But again, there's a range that can fit with the rest of the story if you kind of consider what the author is saying throughout the entire book. So the whale clearly represents something. The whale is a symbol, and yet there is a small range of correct interpretations based on the rest of the story, which you would analyze, right? A few others: the spotted handkerchief, the strawberry handkerchief in Shakespeare's Othello. It is this pivotal element of Othello thinking that Desdemona has been unfaithful to him when really she's been everything he could ever want and more. And there's this whole description that we get about the handkerchief. It appears at crucial moments, so you can tell, okay, what does this represent? Is it a web of lies? Does it represent her faithfulness to him? You can look at it from, again, a variety of different angles. Now, there are some very common symbols. So if one of these shows up in a story, you can ask yourself right out of the gate, is this a symbol? Because the answer might be yes. A common one, a popular one, is stars. Stars very often represent hope. They can represent other things as well, but from the Old Testament to the Inferno, we have stars representing hope. We also have thresholds. Anytime there is a significant threshold that is crossed, especially when you're halfway through a novel or at the very end, there's a physical threshold that is crossed. Very often that also has a symbolic meaning of crossing from one state of being to another, maybe one belief system to another, or something like that, like we see in Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 toward the end when he crosses the road, and a lot of time is spent on that road crossing, and he reaches this river. So we almost get two different boundaries that he goes over in his journey from being a fireman to being something else. So thresholds, speaking of the river, water is something to look out for occasionally, especially if someone is immersed in water and you're reading a more literary work. That can mean a sort of baptism experience or cleansing or something of that kind that goes beyond the literal and goes into a more metaphorical and even symbolic threshold, because we do have that range of meanings that we can attribute to that that thing. Just a couple more. If there is something wrong with a character's heart or eyes, those are the main ones. Occasionally their ability to speak, but heart or eyes, that is very often more than just a physical disease or disability. Very often it also has a symbolic meaning, that there is something not right about the about the emotions of the character, about their ability to see their situation clearly. So that one's a little bit more on the just strictly metaphorical scale. This equals this, but it is something that you can look out for. Last example I'm going to put before you is The Lord of the Rings. Speaking of stars representing hope, that's in here as well. Tolkien was very clear. He did not want Lord of the Rings to be viewed as an allegory. He did not intend it as an allegory, as in this represents this. However, the ring, for example, clearly has applicability, as he put it in his foreword. And applicability is basically, it has symbolism. The ring can represent a whole host of different things if you look at this story from different angles. The potential of power to corrupt is a popular one, but it's not the only one that fits either. You can apply it a bit more to things that were current changes going on in Tolkien's day. So there you go, bunch of examples of different symbols, both specific and general. So look for those things that are dwelt upon, that appeared at a significant moment, that are maybe described in a bit more detail than you would expect, like a strawberry handkerchief or a shell to be described, and think, okay, could this reasonably represent something beyond itself? So there you go, symbolism, everybody. Hope this was helpful. If there are any other terms that you would like me to unpack for you in this way, please do let me know down in the comments, and I will see you next week. Bye.